It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Well, my friends, thanks for joining us. I'm Sam Lesante. Let me read something to you, folks. This is the book Call to Witness. Let me read this to you. Call to Witness is a true story of one woman's battle with disability, discrimination, and a leading pharmaceutical powerhouse. Jane Gagliardo was a throwaway employee, fired after working nearly a decade for a leading vaccine maker, and when her disability surfaced, Jane is fearless and impassioned, and her story will leave readers empowered to stand up for themselves, even if it means standing alone. If you remember, I had Jane on the show before. She's back, and she has a lot more to talk about. Not only we're going to talk about this book, what this is all about, but about our podcast. Now you can listen to a lot of things. Jane, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You look wonderful.
Thank you.
Family's okay.
Everyone's well.
You got a little boo-boo on your arm.
Little boo-boo.
A little boo-boo on your arm.
Don't vacuum. Get a robot.
You get a robot. I told you what I did. I got the shark.
Yes.
Okay. The dice were fabulous.
Yeah.
But pushing around is like it sucks the paint off the floor. You know.
Yeah.
Jane, this story. Okay. Tell us again what happened to you. Okay. Because it says here that you went up against all the odds. Okay. What happened?
So I worked for this pharmaceutical company, and got a new boss was assigned to me in February of 1996, and she made it very clear that she was very uncomfortable with the fact that I had a disability.
What was your disability?
Multiple sclerosis.
Okay.
I was diagnosed in 1980, and she, like I said, she made it very well known she was uncomfortable.
Did she tell you personally?
Oh, well, she not only told me, she emailed it to me, and she would announce it at staff meetings.
That you had this disease?
Yes, and she was uncomfortable with the fact that I had.
It is a disease, right?
It is,
okay.
yes.
So
it's an autoimmune deficiency.
She said that she was uncomfortable because you had multiple
sclerosis.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And in May of 1996, she fired me. But in between that, she was writing me up for performance. I couldn't do my job properly. And I don't know if you know anything about multiple sclerosis, but particularly under stress,
yes.
it
flares.
It flares up. So I was, dragging my leg. I was having a lot of difficulty with memory, concentration, and fatigue. And then she fired me. And it took me a good...
What was her reasoning for firing you?
Performance.
Performance.
For performance.
Okay.
Couldn't perform my duties. And all through the years that I worked there, Sam, I was always... I got great performance, great performance agreements with them. They were wonderful. Received my raises, my bonuses, and the evaluations were great. And then all of a sudden, this happened. So it took me about 6 years to get them into federal court, but I finally did. And in front of a jury, we proved that they fired me because of my multiple sclerosis.
All right, going back, what about her boss?
I believe they were probably all on board with it. They didn't want to go against her.
What did you do after she fired you?
The day that they fired me, they handed me a $10,000 check.
Okay.
And she said, along with the representative from Human Resources, if you sign the papers that you resign, we'll give you $10,000. And I said, but I don't want to resign. And they said, but we're going to give you $10,000. And I said, but I want to work. I want my job. So I said, I want to take these papers to my attorney, and that flustered them a bit, but they did give me copies. And so after I was escorted off the premises, I went right to a payphone because there were no cell phones back then.
What year was this?
1996.
Okay.
And I called my lawyer and I said, hey, I got fired. I kind of give him a brief synopsis of what happened. He said, you didn't sign anything, did you? And I said, no. He said, okay, come down at 10 o'clock tomorrow. And was the process of how it started.
Then you sued the company?
I did.
Okay.
And I sued them, Sam. Listen, this was never about money for me. I wanted my job back. I wanted to work. And I wanted them to say they were sorry. I wanted them to know that you can't just throw away a person because they have a disability. And the attorney said to me, I appreciate that you feel so passionate about that, but that's not going to happen. They're never going to give you your job back. But in between the 6 years, they blackballed me in the area. I couldn't get a job.
How did they blackball you?
Well, I would go for interviews, and they, the person interviewing me, because it was in the paper, and
So this was public knowledge.
absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
So when
yes.
when it was in the paper, they named the company?
Yes, they
Okay.
did.
What was the name of the company?
Connaught Laboratories at the time.
Okay.
I believe they blackballed me when I would go for interviews in the area. I had been told right out by one particular radio station, actually, that they knew what went on there, and it was a fantastic company, and I must have fabricated some of the facts. That was my first indication. The other one was I never got a job. No one would hire me. I couldn't even get a job as a cashier.
I just find that heartless. Okay, I don't care who it is. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just
well.
heartless, no matter who it is. Okay. So
But the difference, if I can interrupt you
Yeah,
for a
sure.
moment, is they didn't know the capability of my survival mode.
yeah,
They really did not
Don't
have a
ever mess
clue.
with a woman. I'll tell you that.
They really did not, because I had children in college. We were hardworking people. My husband worked 2 jobs, and our goal in our life was to put our children through college with no debt. So that was our goal, and they took that away from me. So I was like on a mission to get a
So
job.
for 6
and-
years, you had to go through this. Okay. So what was the final outcome then? When you went to court, what was it? A jury decision, or was it settled before they?
Well, no, they wouldn't. We did try to settle a month before, but they reneged on everything. So we went to trial. It was a 12-person jury, and we ended up for a week. Their story, my story, witnesses, that type of thing, and the jury found in my favor. I think they were in deliberation for less than an hour.
What were they saying about you?
They said that I made a lot of errors. I cost the company a lot of money.
Did you?
Not that I was aware of. I don't think I made any more errors than any of my coworkers did. But they kept at that. That was their focus, that I made these errors. And in fact, when my attorney and his firm, Pat Riley, they ended up doing all this research and found that several of the errors I did make, okay? And I never denied that I didn't make errors. However...
Were they costly errors to the company?
No.
Okay.
Opposing counsel didn't understand the American with Disabilities Act, which, by the way, this month is, I think, 29 years since it's been signed. But he didn't really understand the concept of the American with Disabilities Act and that protected umbrella of what it was. But my problem with my multiple sclerosis is concentration and memory and fatigue. That was never, ever considered a life function under the American with Disabilities Act. And since my trial, that's why this became a landmark case. It is now recognized as a life function.
So during this trial, you certainly were in a lot of stress.
Oh, absolutely,
I mean, that certainly didn't help your cause with MS.
No.
Okay. Was your husband alive at the time?
Yes, he was.
Okay. What did he do?
Well, he wasn't allowed in there with me. I was only allowed in the courtroom with my attorney. Everyone else was, they were outside. They weren't allowed to hear anything that I had to say, so there was no influence. And the judge said that this, in the long run, would be best for the actual trial.
How long was the trial? A week?
Almost a week.
Almost a week. All right. So when they found in your favor, okay, was that public knowledge?
Yes.
Okay. Was the settlement public knowledge?
No.
Okay. All right. Were you satisfied?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, from that ordeal that you went through, okay, for the likes of me, I find it, I read the book, and I find it that why did they continue to torture you mentally which ended up physically, okay, and having the so-called reputation that they had, okay, that's the thing that I'm confused about. You know, we in any business, you let people go or whatever, and you try to make it as nice as you can. Certainly, you know, you don't want to hurt that person for, I mean, unless they stole from you or did something critical,
exactly,
okay?
exactly.
But if you're, you know, if you couldn't get along personality, so that always, I just couldn't understand that. So now that inspired you to get Sherry. How did you get Sherry Blackman? She wrote the book, right?
Yes, Sherry Blackman wrote the book. We met through a mutual friend, and after the trial was all said and done, a mutual friend of mine said, you know, I think this should be, you need to let people know about this. You know, what would you want to accomplish if this was public knowledge? And I said, I want to empower people to know that they're not alone, that they can, you know, that there's organizations, there's people out there to support them, but mostly I want them to be able to know that they should stand up for their rights.
So you sat down with Sherry,
yes,
okay, and you went through this entire book. How did you know where to, you know, I see you started here, I woke up, you know, etc. And how did you know, able to put this all together?
Okay, so
because it's a fascinating book.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, and I know she would too.
Yeah.
But she's a journalist by her profession, and she just kind of did a storyboard. We'd have these meetings, myself, my attorney and her, and she would just make all these notes, and then she would send us chapters, and we would review them and say, well, you know, you need to change this because it's a true story.
Yeah,
it's my true story,
yeah, right,
so
right.
It needs to be true.
Right.
And so she would go back and rewrite and resend it. So it took almost 6 years to write the book.
Okay, so, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, people who have read this book, and I always ask people who come on to write books is, what do you want our audience to get out of reading this book?
I'm hoping they learn to be a voice for themselves, as well as someone who feels they don't have a voice, to encourage them to stand up and speak volumes of people who want to be heard.
Folks, I'm talking to Jane Gagliardo, who is, you know, basically this is her book. It's called The Call to Witness, okay? Now, how do we get this book?
You can get the book on Amazon. It's on Kindle. It's in the bookstores, calltowitness.com. Also, our podcast, which is My Stories, Chapters, and Challenges. You can reach out to us there as well.
And when we come back, folks, we're going to talk about the podcast and how interesting this is. And I have news for you as well, so stay with us. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Good news for those people who do not have cable. You should have cable, but for those people who do not have cable, whatever you have, DirecTV, Dish, or satellite, whatever, you can now watch all of our shows. Just go to download YouTube, subscribe to SSP TV, and you can now watch all the shows that we produce here in Samson Productions. And for those people who are Spanish, if they want to translate in Spanish, it will translate the shows in Spanish for you. Most importantly is download our app. All of the local shows, the neighborhood shows are on here. Again, just search SSP TV. And of course, 24/7 SSPTV.com. My email is sam@ssptv.com. I have here on my show back again, Jane Gagliardo. The book is called The Witness, and it's called The Witness testifies to the strength of the human spirit and to the courage of what it means to stand alone against all of the Goliaths of our day. It's a fascinating book. She's here today. Taking this, now you got the book, okay?
Yes.
And for those people who have read the book, they've developed, you know, able to get some confidence in their lives, okay? Because I always say, nobody has a monopoly on ideas, you know.
Right.
I remember a person says to me, you know, when you go to college, you come out stupid, okay, because there's so much that you could learn in life. The only thing they don't teach us is common sense. And boy, I wish, Jane, that they had a course called Common Sense,
Yes.
Because we see so many people that are brilliant but have no common sense whatsoever.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm sure you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely, I
But
do.
since that time, okay, you've launched, okay, Call to Witness, okay, you've launched a podcast, Okay. So what was the reason for this?
Well, the podcast was inspired by the book. Our public relations manager, Gil Coronado, Sela Management, had spoken to us in regard to trying to get our story out in a more positive way. So he devised this podcast for us, and we have on wonderful guests who have had challenges in their lives.
My job now, right?
Oh no, I go.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no,
Okay.
I could never do your job. No, but we bring guests on who have had challenges in their lives and how they've overcome them and how they've turned them into something really positive for the world.
What have been some of those stories that
Oh
okay.
gosh,
Now, you have this at your home, or what do you?
Oh no, we do it in a studio.
In a studio, okay. And
Yes.
again, it's called My Stories, Chapters, and Challenges, folks,
Yes.
and it's a podcast. And I guess you download the podcast, and then if you just type in My Stories, Challenges, Chapters, and Challenges.
yes.
How did you come up with the name? Before I get to some of your stories, how did you come up with My Stories, Chapters, and Challenges?
I think we collaborated together and just kind of kept throwing things out and came up with that.
Okay, so you have a guest on. So tell me some of the guests that you've had, and what can we learn from that?
We've had numerous varieties of guests, different ones that have inspired things we've learned. For instance, the American Red Cross, Rachael Moyer. She has inspired the world. She lost her son at 16 and found out later that had this AED been available, he probably would have lived. So she went on a mission, she and her family, to make sure every
What did her son die from?
heart attack.
Okay, at
Yeah.
16.
Yes.
All right. And if she would have learned about AED,
If she says that if she had known that this machine was available,
okay.
and in schools, and I mean everywhere you look you will see them, and she has been instrumental in getting them out there, that had he been able to been revived by that,
I see.
probably
Okay.
would have.
All right.
Yeah, he would have lived.
So this is one of
So
the
she's
stories.
one of the guests.
Okay.
We've also had a guest on. We're talking right now about a transgender becoming AJ. That's a fabulous story. But it brings stories to the forefront, a lot of them, of things people really don't want to talk about.
Jane, and that's interesting because when you come to we grew up certain ways, okay? I mean, so it's like that tree that had, it's very difficult sometimes to bend the tree because, and so to try to get information out and try to have an open mind, okay?
Yes.
And I mean, look, in some cases, I was guilty of, being a staunch Italian Catholic, okay,
Yes.
a practicing Catholic, and so then you have your ways, and then you think, well, this is until you need to open up.
Yes,
you need to,
absolutely.
like harden not your heart, so to speak, okay.
Yes.
And I think that's the great thing about what you're doing is because when I was debater. Okay, you debated both sides, and it was a wonderful thing because you were able to debate this side and then learn about then this side. Then you
Yes.
can make a valued decision.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we don't have that with politics today because people have agendas. Okay?
Yes, they do.
And sometimes that's it's wrong. But you bring people on that, for example, that transgender thing. Okay.
Yes.
Right away, people cast aspersions. But however, what did you learn from that?
Oh my gosh, we've learned so much about the journey of getting there, about his journey of getting to where he is now, the struggles that he had, the judgment that was cast upon him. And I think for our show, My Stories, Chapters, and Challenges, we try to eliminate that judgment so that the listener can make a conscious decision as to what the story is about.
I think that's
bringing
fabulous.
awareness
I really
to
think
it.
that's right. Talking to Jane Gagliardo, folks, get the book, Call the Witness. Come back. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the interesting guests that she has, and you can listen to them on our podcast. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. The book is called Call the Witness, and if you missed part of the show, we repeat the show. But most importantly, it's on our app, and if you don't have cable, don't forget, Just download YouTube and subscribe to SSP TV. My guest is Jane Gagliardo. Has a podcast now. It has interesting guests, and it's called My Stories, Chapters, and Challenges. Okay, some of the guests that you've had then, that just highlights. We're gonna have a couple of minutes left.
Okay. Well, we've had women's resources on, bringing awareness to domestic violence, sexual assault, which is something I'm very passionate about. I'm a state certified counselor for that. And just to brag a little bit, I received the Volunteer of the Year award not too long ago.
I'm shocked.
I was shocked because, you know, when you volunteer, you do things out of passion.
Yeah.
You don't expect anything back because it's to make your community better. And I was very humbled, very, very humbled by it.
So, is there a time limit on your guest, or could they?
We have 20-minute, 20-minute podcasts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which you could certainly. So let's assume that I listen to your podcast, and it's called My Stories, Chapters, and Challenges.
Right.
And there's a lot of different subject matters.
Yes.
But let's say I want to get in touch with you. How do I get and say, look, hey Jane, could you have this person on because I have a problem with this? And then sometimes people say, Sam, why don't you have that person on? Why don't you have this person on? Which is like, okay, how do they do that?
Well, they can reach us through our website, Call to Witness, or
Call to Witness is the website.
Calltowitness.com, yes.
Calltowitness.com. Okay.
They can. My co-host Sherry Blackman, who is
the girl who wrote the book.
Yes,
okay.
she is my co-host. She's also the minister, at Presbyterian minister at Church of the Mountain in Delaware Water Gap, which has a hostel for the Appalachian Trail. So you can reach us through her. You could reach us through CELA Management, which is our public relations.
Yeah.
So, or contact you. I'm sure you can give them, tell them how to get a hold of us.
Yeah, and I think it's just great, because if you have different subject matters, okay, I try to do that. Well, when we get around political time, it's, I got to do what I have to do because I want to bring the seniors awareness because I feel they should know what's going on, get it firsthand other than a 30-second commercial.
I agree.
But Jane, it's certainly a pleasure to see you again.
You too. Thank you so much for having me again.
It's my pleasure. I love shows like this,
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm hoping that those people who have some challenges in their life go to your podcast and My Stories, Chapters, and Challenges, but most especially get this on Amazon or Kindle or whatever. Call to Witness. It's a fabulous book, and you'll learn something from it.
And a percentage of all the proceeds goes to MS for research.
That's great. So you're doing all right. I mean,
I'm doing good. Yes.
Thank God they have the medicine they have today.
Yes.
Etc. Folks, Jane Gagliardo, the person, true story, Call to Witness. Don't forget her podcast, My Stories, Chapters, and Challenges. You'll learn a lot from it. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.